Hi, welcome to the Corner of Knit and Tea, episode 483. My name is Laura. I'm also known as Fluffy Kira on Instagram, Twitter, and Blue Sky. I have a blog called The Corner of Knit and Tea, or at thecornerofknitandtea.com, where I post this episode and every episode show notes. I have an Etsy shop called The Corner of Knit and Tea, where I sell my handspun yarns and knitting patterns. And right now we are active in the Corner of Knit and Tea Ravelry group and the Team CKT Spin It to Win It group on Facebook. So hi, how are you? I hope that you are doing well. It is Monday, July 15th. I can hardly believe we're already halfway through the month and we are 2 weeks into the Tour de Fleece. So that is where that is why we're using the Ravelry group and the Facebook group. Those are normally fairly dormant throughout the year, but during Tour de Fleece, it is time for chat and sharing photos and just lots of fun. So I hope that you are doing well. It is an extremely warm day here just outside of Kansas City. I live on the Kansas side, and we're having triple-digit heat indexes, and so it's been quite warm in the past few days. I hope you are doing well. We had a really lovely weekend. Some good friends of ours got married, and so that was kind of fun. We got to go to a wedding. It's been a while, and we had a really good time, and I got a little bit of exercise in, although I had to do it in our basement downstairs because it's so warm outside, and I did get a little bit of crafting in. I am still sort of giving my wrist a pass, but I started a very tiny little bit of knitting, almost not enough to talk about, but I'll show you anyway. And then I started a new embroidery project, and I did do some quilting this weekend, and I want to show you some of the mistakes I made that I talked about last week, and then I'll show you how I'm kind of resolving that. So it should be kind of a short episode, but I do have a few things to show you. So today I am drinking Bird and Blend Peach Cobbler because it is almost really good peach season. I haven't had too many yet, but August is the perfect time for peaches. I grew up in California, and we had a couple peach and nectarine trees in the backyard, and August was always my favorite because the peaches and the nectarines would get ripe, and we would make fresh ice cream, and we would just have so much fruit, and it was so good, and I miss that. And supermarket peaches are not always the best, but if you can find a good farmer's market when they're in season, ooh, they're so delicious. Anyway, so peach cobbler from Bird and Blend, and I am drinking it today in my mug that is called Skills. It is Batman knitting. It is a Carl Mountford illustration, and I got the mug at Society 6 quite a few years ago. They have a couple other, I think there's Thor knitting, and there are a couple others. So if it amuses you as much as it amuses me, you could check Society 6 and see if any of his prints are available on mugs. So this is a yummy tea that I have had before, and it is not an herbal tea. It's a black tea, I think. Ceylon black tea, freeze-dried peach, cornflower petals, and natural flavoring. So it is delicious and perfect for a summer afternoon. I bet it would make an absolutely delightful iced tea as well. I'm just making sure that I set my mug carefully on my desk. I don't want to do it in front of me because I have lots of things I'll be showing you, but I want to make sure that's not going to fall over. Anyway, so the things that I have been working on this week, I have done a very, very little bit of knitting. I knit just a little bit on I think maybe Tuesday and Wednesday this week, just because I was frustrated and I wanted to knit, and it probably wasn't doing me any favors, but I did just a little bit, and then I just decided that I was going to give myself the rest of the week off, and tonight I'm going to try and start knitting again. But so what I did is I started a new top. I am knitting the Hipster Top by Joji Locatelli. It is a pattern that just came out in the last couple weeks, and it is based loosely off of her Hipster Shawl, which had kind of a very distinctive stitch pattern. So, and this is the stitch pattern here, where you have some elongated loops, and then they are passed over each other, and they create this kind of pattern with some negative space. And so I started the tee. Basically, this is one of the shoulders, and then this is one of the front patches. And I am using two colors from my friend Christine Treasure Goddesses Yarns. I have one of the labels, and it is her yak toes. We won't discuss the whether or not it is advised to use yak yarn for a summer tee, but this is her superwash merino and yak. So it's 70% superwash merino wool, 20% yak, 10% 100% nylon, 437 yards to 100 grams, fingering weight. The dark color is Song of the Sirens, and the light color is From the Depths, She Rose, and it's kind of a dusty pink, and I'm loving these colors together. I had previously started a different top in these two colors, and I had only started working with the rose, but it was gonna be some similar pinstripes, and I specifically picked these to go together, so I'm very, very excited for this. Like I said, I only did a very, very little bit, because I was really trying to be good to myself this past week and not exacerbate the problem. It's super frustrating. I got tendonitis in March and I was doing pretty well, and then Tour de Fleece came along and I got excited and I spun a ton, and my arm started hurting again. I have pain kind of in the forearm here and back into my elbow, and so I started doing my exercises and taking my ibuprofen, and part of me thought, oh, I could probably just knit a little bit through this, and then part of me was like, but if I just keep pushing through it, it's never really gonna heal. So I've taken a week off and I'm going to try to knit a little bit again tonight. It may not work very well, and I'm prepared to be disappointed and stop if I need to stop, because I do want to let my arm heal. I mean, I'm so frustrated because I really, really want to knit and craft and spin, and especially spinning during Tour de Fleece. I'm just missing this year. But I also understand that if I don't give it a rest, that it's just going to hurt on and on and on. I could do more damage, and it's just going to be longer until I can get back to it. So frustratingly, I'm trying to be good. So one of the things that I discovered in March was that I can do a little bit of embroidery and stitching without aggravating the same muscles. I don't know precisely why that is, but for some reason the holding of the needle is different. So I have decided to start on a new embroidery pattern. And this pattern, I'm sort of proud of myself. So I have been buying kits, and I have been sharing those kits with you. And I really have liked the kits because they come with everything I need. They come with a hoop and fabric and either a pre-printed design or a design I can transfer, and all the floss that I need for those. And I love them. They are a little bit on the expensive side. I think they are super useful to someone who's starting out, who doesn't have a stash of materials or a lot of knowledge, because all of them have come with stitch booklets. But what I have found out is that like several of the kits that I like are now using the same stitches, and so it's not entirely useful to have the whole kit. Like I don't necessarily need the whole kit. So I decided this time I was going to try and do something on my own. So I was at Joann's several weeks ago, and I went and looked, and they have embroidery hoops in all different sizes. I think I bought 5, 6, and 7-inch hoops, and I want to say the hoops were like $1.99, so they were not expensive at all. And then I had found this pattern on Ravelry, I had found this pattern on Etsy that I really, really wanted to do, and it was just a PDF pattern. And so I went back to buy it this weekend, and it was a pattern that had been $5.99, and it was on sale for $2.99. So I was very excited and bought it. I would have actually bought it at $5.99 because, as it turns out, it was a really lovely pattern. So it is just basically the stencil for you to put on your fabric, and that you can do that in a couple ways. You can transfer it to some interfacing that has a sticky background, and you can stick it onto your design. You can pull it off, and you can trace the design onto your fabric using a water-soluble pen. You can buy some dissolvable paper, water-soluble paper, and you can put the design on the paper, and then you can sew through the paper onto the fabric, which is what I ended up doing. So I bought a small square of fabric, just a little bit of Kona cotton in a dark color. For this one, I actually wanted to use black as the background because that was what the pattern came in. Oh, I know what I was going to say. The thing about the pattern that was so great. So I got the pattern, and it was a PDF, but it was like a 10-page PDF, because what she had done was she had drawn out the outline for the whole pattern, and then she had resized it so that you could do it on a 3-inch hoop, a 4-inch hoop, a 5-inch hoop, a 6-inch hoop, and you just printed the page that you needed. And then at the very end, she had a full color photo, and it said it was like a stitch and thread guide, although it did not say what the stitches were. I mean, it was magnified quite a bit, so you could kind of tell what the stitches were. But then down at the bottom, it had all the DMC colors of the floss listed. So I bought some, I thought what I was buying was peel and stitch paper, or peel and stitch interfacing to put on, so that I could actually stick it to the fabric. As it turns out, what I was buying was the water soluble paper. And so I printed my design on the water soluble paper and then took it to put it on the fabric. And the reason that I really needed the paper this time, rather than just freehanding it or drawing it on, is because I decided to use black fabric, and I don't have a white pen right now, so I decided to just go ahead and put the paper on. So that is kind of what I'm doing. The design here is, it's kind of a lavender field, and it has a whole bunch of flowers and a whole bunch of different purples, and then it's got some greens and it had some blues. And what I did is, these are actually not the colors that it calls for. I have a whole box of embroidery floss, and one of the things that I decided to do was, this time I decided, rather than buy a $40 or $50 kit, I was gonna purchase a few materials and use what I had at home. So I had already bought the, oops, sorry, I've got an extra piece of thread there. I already had the embroidery hoop that I had bought for like $1.99. I bought the pattern for $2.99. I bought the paper, which was maybe $10.99, but it comes with 12 sheets, so I have plenty to do future designs on. So, you know, really, if it was $10.99 and it comes with 12 sheets, it's about $1 a sheet. We'll just, it's not fully $1 a sheet, but close enough. It's like $1.10 a sheet. Okay, and then I decided to use, I had needles, I had plenty of needles, and then I decided to use all of my own floss colors. So what I did is I laid out and I picked up a bunch of purples. I think I'm using all the purples that I have. And then I picked out some greens and grays and some blues. And so I just kind of laid all the floss out on my desk and kind of chose some complementary colors. And I am just sort of choosing what I want and kind of spreading things around. So all of my final supplies arrived on Friday. I was waiting for the paper and for the linen, or not linen, for the Kona cotton. And so I started on Friday, and these are the parts that I got done this weekend. I've added a few, I think I have a few, I have done the stem over here. So I still have that, and then I just have the rest of the flowers to do. And my guess is that depending on how knitting goes this week, I will get more of this done this week. So I'm really excited about this. I think it's going to be really pretty. If you want to see the colors, this is the back side of my embroidery, and it's fairly clean, but you can kind of see how the colors are going to show up against the black, and that is part of why I selected the black, because I thought they would show up really beautifully, and I was really excited to kind of play with that. So that is what I'm working on this week. The only thing that I have to say is I kind of wish that I had ordered the interfacing that had a little bit of sticky on the back of it, because using the paper is a little bit annoying, particularly when you're first starting. Basically, I'm just stitching right through the paper. The paper will tear away when I'm done, and actually it has, like on this flower down here where I did so much, I started at the center and then went to the outer edge. It's basically torn down here. You can't see it, and I can't really lift it, but it's already basically torn around the circle because I made so many holes in quick succession around there. So this will be easy to kind of pull the paper off, and then I can just pop it in the sink and soak it, and the paper is water soluble, so the last little bits will dissolve away. So I'm very excited about this. I already have felt that I bought several years ago. I think anybody who's a crafter has felt somewhere. So I already have felt so that I can put felt over the back when I'm done, and then I just need to buy a few picture hooks, and then I will have 4 or 5 pieces of embroidery to hang on the wall. So I really need to get my husband to help me put some nails in the wall. Yes, I could put them in myself, but he looks for the studs and does like all the appropriate stuff, and so he's handy. I'm not. So then I can kind of make myself an embroidery wall. So this is the one that I'm working on right now. I did actually order one more kit. I know I said I wasn't going to order a ton more kits, but the shop that actually had the Kona cotton in it also had another kit that I thought looked cute that I had saved once upon a time, and it has a bunch more decorative stitches that I do not know how to do. And so I will work on that at some point in the not too distant future, because there were a ton of new stitches in there. I just didn't want to keep buying flowers that had satin stitch, because I know how to do satin stitch now. And now I've done the woven rose, so I know how to do some woven stuff. And so this new one has a whole bunch of, it's got turkey stitch, and it's got like a whole variety of other stitches that I've never done before. So I thought that would be kind of fun. And it's a little bit more 3D. It's got pieces that kind of puff up and off the hoop, and so I thought that would be kind of fun. So I will probably go back and forth between doing kind of PDF patterns and my own supplies and other stuff. The other thing that I found is somebody is doing a set of patterns. I found it in an Etsy shop. It's a set of patterns where they're basically using one color a month. And so it's like all shades of red in January and all shades of orange in February and all shades of yellow in March, I mean, that's not exactly the colors. Ultimately, I think it's going to be a full rainbow gradient of colors, but they're doing one a month. And I thought actually it would be interesting to do those. I was kind of excited to do those because I have lots of different colors in my floss box. And then my husband suggested that maybe I start thinking about how I could tie in my embroidery and my quilting. And then I started thinking, wouldn't it be cool to do like the whole year on patches of Kona cotton and then putting them together, or somehow working them into a quilt, because you could do like a 3x4 and end up with a lap quilt. So now I have other ideas. So I don't know what I'll be doing, but as long as my arm keeps up, I definitely will be doing more embroidering, and I've kind of gotten into it, and I don't have a ton of supplies now. I'm really trying not to stockpile, but of course, I have a box of embroidery floss, so that is kind of what I'm working through, and I know I have plenty of reds, and I have plenty of greens, and I have plenty of blues, and then some of the other colors I may need to supplement, but we'll see. So that is knitting and embroidering, and the last thing is going to be quilting. So I am working on the second of the donation quilts that I picked up to start in April. I originally picked them up to donate them to one cause. I will likely have to donate them to a different cause now because I didn't finish in time because of my arm. But I had finished quilting the first one. It's actually sitting behind me, and I knew that I wanted to quilt the second one. And so about a week and a half ago, I decided that well, not this past weekend, the weekend before, I decided that I wanted to give it a go and start quilting. So for the first one, I was having a little trouble when I was doing my free motion quilting, doing a lot of the curves and kind of the swirly loops. The tension on my thread was not great. And so I decided on the second quilt that I wanted to do something with more straight lines, because I thought maybe that would be easier. And result in a better finish given the limitations of my knowledge on how to fix that thread tension. So last weekend, I decided what I was going to do is quilt some straight lines. And I don't want to quite call this straight line quilting, because straight line quilting, as I understand it, is when you're quilting along seam lines that already exist in the quilt. So for instance, I'm just going to show you a little bit of the quilt here. And we'll talk about what I did. So to me, straight line quilting would indicate that maybe I was following the lines of these jelly roll strips and that I was only sewing kind of along those lines. And I thought about doing that, but then I thought that I wanted to have it be a little bit more fun and whimsical because this is a kid's quilt. And I saw this video from Leah Day, who does a lot of free motion quilting, and she does it both on her home machine and then also on a long arm quilting machine. I saw this video where she did a whole bunch of lines. She did vertical lines, and what she did was, rather than worrying about how straight they were going to be, she intentionally kind of offset them a little bit. So there would be and just wherever she felt like at whatever angle. So basically it was a whole bunch of mismatched lines that were straight, but they went off at different angles. And so some of them crossed and intersected and some of them didn't. And I thought that would be kind of cool. And I also thought that I would try using a new technique to me, which is I have seen people draw lines on their quilt and or use painter's tape to place lines on their quilt, and then they sew along the edge of the painter's tape. And they use painter's tape because it is somewhat easy to pull up and restick. It's that blue tape that you use when you're painting, and it will stick a few times. And so I bought a roll of painter's tape from Home Depot and sat down and laid it out on the quilt and tried to lay it out in roughly straight lines and sew along it. And the first problem that I had was my quilt was big enough, and it was rippling and moving enough, and the tape wasn't quite sticky enough to stay stuck. So it kept coming unstuck, and I kept having to like lay it back down and kind of try and lay it in a straight line and continue quilting. And what happened is, as I did that, the needle, the angle of the line would change, and or I would stop with the needle down in the quilt, I would relay out the thing, I would start sewing again, and then I would be going in a different direction than I had started in. And so what I ended up with were a whole bunch of lines that curved and switched and moved, and nothing was straight. Nothing. And I still have some of those lines in here. You may be able to see. So you can see like right here, I got to that point and then it starts going off in another direction. And like these two cross here. But the worst was when I got down towards the bottom. And check out this one here. It just like, it goes back and forth and back and forth, and then it like curves this way back off. And I just looked at that and I was like, I am never going to be happy with that. That is terrible. I don't like it at all. So I pulled I pulled the quilt off the machine and thought, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to let this sit a little longer. Now I need to pull out those quilting lines. But one of the things that I knew is that if I pulled the seams out, I had already taken the pins that were like holding the quilt together. So I would have to put the pins back in and figure out what I was going to do. And so instead, so I had started with my lines. You can kind of see, you can sort of see here. I had started with my lines at approximately the center of the quilt. I've pulled these top couple out, but you can kind of see. I had started with my lines at the center of the quilt, and I had started working my way towards one side. And so what I did was I just went ahead and picked up on the other side of the quilt to start what I wanted to try. And what I wanted to try was, I wanted to try some kind of all kinds of lines, like crazy kind of puzzle block lines and all kinds of different shapes, but all lines as opposed to curves. And they're not all without curves, but as opposed to like swirls and loops, like what I was doing last time, this I wanted to be a little more jagged and weird shapes. And what I ended up with is I actually put a full bobbin in, or almost a full bobbin, and you can kind of see here what that looks like. So it's just like all kinds of fun and jagged and kind of squiggly, but not curly squiggly, more like angular squiggly. And I'm really, really happy with that. And that is how I'm going to continue on the quilt. And I don't know if you can see it better on the back. Again, I'm using the same backing on this quilt as I used on the last one, but you can see the squiggles. So that is what I am doing, and I'm following no general pattern or whatnot. I'm just moving the machine around, and for the most part, it looks pretty good both on the front and the back, and I think it's just going to be kind of fun and playful, and so I'm just going to fill in around the whole quilt. Eventually, I'm going to have to pull those straight lines out of the other half of the quilt when I go back to finish that, and so that will be a project and not a fun project because my stitches are kind of on the small side and close together, and so they're not pulling apart that easily. So I decided to save that for next week. My husband's going to be out of town. He's going away for a bike ride. He's going to do Ragbri, which is a bike ride across Iowa, and he'll be away for 9 days. And so I decided that like next week I'm going to finish this quilt. So I'm going to finish with the machine quilting. I'm going to pull out all the old stitches that didn't work and finish it off and bind it. And so that is my project for the next 2 weeks, is to basically make this quilt be finished, because I have a million and one other quilting ideas, and at least right now it appears like I can do some sewing and not aggravate my arm. So for now I'm going to focus on embroidery and sewing. I have some ideas for more. So I had started, before I got into these, I had actually started my next quilt, which is a red and white quilt that I was making out of a mystery pack of fabric that I received. And I don't know if I'm going to keep it or not for myself, because it wasn't really fabric that I would have purchased if I hadn't kind of gone in on the get a mystery layer cake. But I can finish it, and then it is also, it's going to be roughly 40 by 40, so I can go ahead and donate it if I want to, along with these couple quilts. It's not specifically a kid's quilt, it's in red and white. I had bought green for the backing fabric because I thought that would be kind of fun to make it almost Christmassy, but I'm going to wait and see what I think of it, and then I could back it with a different color if I wanted to, and I will probably machine quilt it myself. But then this week I saw a quilt pattern, and it's kind of a modern quilt pattern, and I was like, nope, I want that for myself. And somebody had the fabric that I wanted that I've been eyeing for like 6 months or a year. They had it on sale, and so I bought it, and I am ready to go on another quilt for myself. So I have this one and one more that I gotta finish before I can do that. And so right now, unfortunately, since I can't be knitting summer tops, which is what I really want to be doing, and spinning for Tour de Fleece, which is also what I really want to be doing, I guess I'm just going to sink myself into my other crafts. So that is kind of the state of things, what the crafty news is here, Shay, Corner of Knit and Tea. I hope that you are doing well. I hope that you are not battling injury, and you are able to kind of enjoy what's going on this summer and working on the things that you are most interested in. And I think that's it for this week. So this is the final week of the tour. The tour ends on Sunday, July 21st. Following that, the following Friday, the Olympics start, and I'm planning on watching those for a couple weeks. And then the Tour de Femme will be, which is basically the Tour de France, but for women, will be after the Olympics are over. So despite the fact that I'm not really into sports, I'm going to spend the summer watching a lot of sporting and athletic activities. But my plan is to craft as much as I can and do what I can when I'm able and try and enjoy it, because it is it's what I love, and my hope is that eventually I'm going to get beyond this injury phase so that I can go back to doing what I love without pain. So I wish you a wonderful week ahead. If you are spinning, tune in with us in the Facebook groups and Ravelry groups through the end of the week. Usually what happens is we finish on a Sunday, I give everyone a day or two to post photos, and then I award grand prizes, and then those groups will probably go more or less silent. I'm not going to do anything official for the Tour de Femme. I don't even know whether I'll be spinning or not, unfortunately. If you'd like to stick around and spin for those and chat in the group, that's fine. I probably won't do prizes or anything. And I will definitely be watching the women, but we won't be continuing the event itself. But I hope you have a wonderful week ahead, and I will come back to you next week with whatever I am able to work on and finish. And I'll say, as I always do, happy knitting, happy spinning, happy quilting, embroidering, any other craft you choose to do, and happy sipping. And I'll see you next time. Bye.